A court of fairies and fiction. Akafath Girls Podcast. Hosts Mel and Liv. Season 2, Episode 5, The Middle, The Monsters, The Matron.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
We did not have
We're back.
We did not have an introduction for the last episode. It was so awkward.
Was it really? Oh my gosh.
Because I had to. I'm sorry, because I had to cut it from the third episode because we were talking about Gwenriel and then we went off track and then we went back to Gwenriel. So then I had to cut it in the middle and put that first. So we're sorry, guys. There was no hello intro last episode, but it was a good fucking episode.
I loved our discussion. I really honestly did.
It was such a good episode.
Yeah. I know. I feel like as time gets closer, the Gwenriel, Elriel, everything, because I've been sending that to you online like crazy. Like, I don't know if you saw I sent you today, but things are starting to get heated on both fronts. Again. And it's only getting worse. It's like really ramping up.
So I will say something. I do still heavily believe that it's going to be a Gwenriel book with a Nesta side plot. That's next.
Yeah, I agree.
But I am not going to be mad if it's the Aleutian book because I fucking love Aleutian too. And anything with Lucian is gold. So just for the record, because people are like, I don't get why people are so against an Elaine book because she's the next sister. I'm like, I'm not against it. It just doesn't at all look like her book is next. We could be surprised. We could be shocked. Maybe she'll just throw it out there because she already wrote it. Who knows?
Right.
As long as Lucian is in it, I will be good.
I'm not against the Elaine book. I would welcome it because, like you said, we're both Aleutians, so it's fine. But it's just, it doesn't make sense if you look at where things have stopped. Like, you're going to stop the plot line, which is unresolved, to like jump to an Elaine book. I don't get that.
Yeah, like you can't.
It's really weird. It just wouldn't flow.
Yeah, you can't just disregard what she wrote in Hofast and then just like go back. Like, I don't know. Right?
I know people have been fighting me because I'm like, we could possibly get another Nesta book, but it's like an Azrael. And I'm like, she literally left Nesta's storyline unfinished. Like, it's on a cliffhanger. Like, Bryce is like, go figure it out. People are ignoring that.
I know.
So you think SJM's just gonna forget about that and throw that? I mean, it's possible.
And just the fact that people still don't think that it's going to be, like, to me, it's weird to me that people don't by now know that it's going to be Gwenriel, and not just because of the Azrael and Gwen scenes, but specifically because of Nesta and Azrael and Hofast. Because why was she connecting Nesta to Azrael? Right?
So closely. There was already an entire book about them. Absolutely.
And we already know that the Valkyries are connected to Nesta. So she's already making the connection of Gwen to Nesta, Azrael to Nesta, which perfectly sets up a Gwenriel Nesta book. A Gwenriel Nesta Valkyries Dusk book.
Yep. Yeah.
Right?
I perfectly. Like, I have no question in my mind that is where we're going next.
That's what's happening.
But everyone's like, they're quoting that one interview where she was talking about, remember the vines? She was like,
she was pregnant.
And
I was writing in the garden, and then it just kind of came to me. But I work on multiple projects at a time. Who says she wasn't just like writing stuff for Elaine's book while she was writing this book? Like, she could have been writing both.
It doesn't mean that book will be next. Exactly. Yeah.
She was definitely just jotting down ideas.
I think so too. I think she was just like, oh, strangling Ivy, like, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because she was, even when she was talking with Jenna Hager, she was like, Nesta's Nesta's still healing. She's she's still,
Her arc isn't like, yeah, she's still healing. She's not healed yet.
Yes, I thought that was really weird. Like when she was talking about that with Joanna, I was like, SJM, what are you doing? I truly thought we were done with Nesta.
I mean,
so,
I didn't. Because I told you.
Really?
I'm going to lead into Amren here because I told you, remember when Amren says, when you explode, girl, make sure it's felt across worlds. She has not technically exploded yet. She hasn't.
I just kind of chalked that up as like Amren being weird. Like I never took that seriously. That Nest is gonna explode. Like really? Is she trying to say she's a witch?
Starlight. Explode with Yep.
I don't like it. I don't like
I saw something on, I'm going to go back to Amren. I saw something on TikTok, which, do you remember when we were talking about how Nesta has Deanna's moonfire?
Yeah.
And all of that. And how Deanna was like a ruthless god and she was awful and she wanted to take over Aelin. And part of the reason why I think the Tog gods were also Asteri was because like she wanted to just like take Aelin's magic and like heal herself. Like it was weird. It's weird. Deanna was very ruthless. And as I said, there's always going to be outliers with these things because no species is fully evil or fully good. Like, the Bone Carver didn't want to have anything to do with it. So I do feel like Mala probably didn't want to have anything to do with that kind of stuff, and, Aelin's lying down, whatever. But like Deanna was one of like, I don't know, she kind of reminds me of Rigelus a lot. And she literally possesses Aelin. She goes into Aelin's body.
Oh my god. I'm so behind.
So I haven't gotten to this point, but someone pointed out on TikTok when they were like, oh yeah, it's totally Deanna's magic or whatever, and that's why Lanthus was afraid of whatever, because remember, Lanthus is like, which death god are you? Or whatever, and she's like, you know who? And he's like, that's not possible, because they're supposed to be dead, right? Because Aelin supposedly killed them, right? But she really just shoved them into a gate.
Okay.
And so someone's like, I don't know the exact quote, but someone says that like when Deanna is possessing Aelin, she literally like points to a town and is like, I'm gonna destroy it or something. And someone's like, it was totally like Nesta pointing at the King of Highburn, like the death promise. And I'm like,
is that why that was such a big deal when she points?
The points. And Tamlin? Put that finger down, you witch.
Oh, I love that man. Every time I think of him saying that to her, I was like, oh. He knows. He knew, Melanie. He knew.
Devlon and Bellius, like the fucking witch, like they know. So, but
how do they know? Tell me how.
So listen. So we know the Asteri are Daglin, and we can assume that the Asteri are Valg, right? So the witches, as I've said, are half Valg, half Fae. They are the kids of Valg and Fae.
So okay. So tell me, how does that play in? Like, are you saying maybe Tamlin is a Valg?
No, so the Valg bred with Fae, and the result are witches. So if Nesta went into the cauldron and came out a witch, we know that her ears are high Fae.
Hi.
But her powers are Valg. Like her powers are
totally see that.
They are like a scary power, the moonfire.
Yeah.
Right?
I could see it. It would make sense to me,
And I think I saw it the other day and I think I forgot to screenshot it, but I think it was God, was it? I want to say it was Devlon. I think it was Devlon. And yeah, it was Devlon when they're at the Illyrian camps and I don't know if he's trying to get the girls to train or what. And that's like when he calls her a witch or whatever. He's like, she may look high fae, but she's not high. She's as much fae as we are. And I was like, excuse me?
How do they know? Like, how?
And Rhys is just like, just take her and just take her. No. It was in Akawar when they're trying to get them to fight for the war, the Darkbringers and everything. So he's like, just take her into the war tent, Cassian. Like, if Nesta stays around, Devlon's gonna throw a hissy fit the longer she's around. So he's like, just take her into the war tent. And that's when they go to the war tent and Elaine is like, oh, but like they snapped your bones and your wings were shredded. And he's like, it'll take more than that to kill me. And she's like, no, it will not. So like we have Devlon in the scene saying she may look fae, but she's as much fae as we are. And then you have Elaine going, no, it will not. And I'm like, they're fucking witches. They came back witches.
They have to be. Well, I was thinking about this the other day. She talks about witches, but it's very subtle in Akatar. Like, we know there's like the middle, and I always thought this was very suspicious because witches were talked about when they discussed the middle and then never again. And we don't see any witches referenced anywhere in Akatar. But Morgan sounds like a witch to me. When she bleeds.
I was going to bring that up. That was also in the scene when Nesta, after Devlon calls her a witch or whatever, and Moore is in the tent with them, and she's like, what's the difference between a fae and a witch?
Yeah,
and Moore explains, like she knows.
So why have we not seen
her dark
any
roiling
witches?
magic?
We haven't seen any witches in Akatar, but I don't think it's because we haven't seen them. I think it's because we just don't know.
We haven't identified them.
There you go. Moore is a witch. Moore is a witch.
Moore has the amber eyes. Eris has the amber eyes.
Yeah. The Nesta and Elaine, I think, are witches too. I completely agree with you. I think they came back as them.
I think that Mala and Deanna were the first sisters. And so, as I told you, Deanna was Lady of the Hunt, Lady of the Moon. Lanthus wanted Nesta to be his Queen of Queens and wanted to reinstate the Wild Hunt. Like, Nesta is Deanna. That's what she took from the cauldron. She took Deanna's moonfire from the cauldron.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Mistress of the Night, Keeper of the Moon. Siblings, Mala Firebringer, died when Aelin trapped the gods in the Valg world.
They're not dead. I mean, I don't know. I haven't finished talking yet.
They're the fucking Asteri. Come on.
They have to be.
Come on. Yeah, and Moore is like, well, witches can go beyond their physical reserves and use ancient artifacts for their power, which, hello, Dread Trove.
Yeah. Totally.
Right.
Totally.
So I was going to say, which I don't really see Mala in her, really, but I was going to say maybe Nesta was Deanna and Elaine was Mala, but no, because Mala was Lydia's Firebringer, Brannon and Mala, and that was technically Lydia and Tamlin's line, which
I know.
What has been passed down to Tamlin that he knows about the witches from Tog?
I know. The fact that he was like, put your finger down, witch. Like,
witch.
He knew it. How did he know? Was his mom a witch? I don't know. I don't know.
But so Rhys has to know because Rhys's mom was definitely a witch.
Well, yeah. Look at the two people that identify the witches. It's the Night Court with Rhys and the Spring
Illyrian
Court. the Illyrians and the Spring Court with Tamlin.
And
Those
why
are
are
the
we
two-
and why are we connecting Azriel to Tamlin?
I know.
Right?
I know.
And so
I know.
the Illyrians were also created by the Valg.
Yeah.
They're called Lesser Fae. So I wouldn't be surprised if the female Illyrians are witches.
Yes. Yes. It makes total sense.
And
to
maybe
me.
that's why we don't have a ton on Emery yet.
Oh, I kind of like that. Let me plug my phone in so it doesn't.
Okay. Okay. So the witches. So
The witches.
yeah. So I wrote some notes while you were going
Love
all
it.
this.
Let's go over it. I want to hear all of them.
So I said Vesperus, creator of the Illyrians. As we know, the Illyrians were supposed to be warrior angels for the Asteri. The Valg is the Asteri. Just to say this over and over and over again. The Valg is the Asteri.
Have we? Okay, so we are like pretty confident in that.
Yes.
Okay.
Vesperus wanted to go live in the middle. Remember?
I do remember.
Vesperus wanted to live in the middle, which we thought was weird, right? But like you said, the middle was where the witches were from, held, whatever. So I said that the middle could have been where they were creating like the Illyrians and the witches and like because in Tog it was in Marath when they were like breeding the Fae with the Valg and then I don't think you're at Queen of Shadows yet.
No.
But
No.
in Queen of Shadows, it's awful. Oh my god, it's awful. But the Valg are demanding that Manon choose which covens for them to breed with because they want to, make more demons, witches, whatever monsters. And like it's just awful. They're like screaming and they're being tormented and like ugh.
Wait, are they being raped?
And they're like, yeah, and they're like birthing like monsters and it's just awful.
The witches are?
Yeah. And Manon is like offering up covens, like her grandmother's making her because like she's under her grandmother. So she's like, you're gonna choose covens to give to them and you're gonna like cooperate and all this stuff. And it's like awful. Yeah. So
I need to read. I need to read more.
yeah. So I said I think in Prithian, the middle is where they were doing all this breeding, and that's why it's all rotted and awful and whatever.
Yeah.
And that's where they created the witches and the Illyrians and all this stuff. So I said that witches and Illyrians, both being creations of the Asteri / Valg, probably used to live amongst one another, kind of, wherever they. Or, I mean, technically, yeah. I mean, somehow the Illyrians ended up in the Night Court. We don't really know how or why, but they did. So I said they used to live among one another and probably have children with each other. I think the females would become witches. The males would just stay Illyrian. Somewhere along the line, there were probably too many who were corrupted or too powerful. And those were the ones that became like bloodthirsty and whatever, like the Iron Teeth witches, like Manon's witches. Because we know that Manon kind of drinks blood and she hunts humans for fun. And she's like this awful person at first. And I was like, she's like very vampire-y at first. And she like will like drink the blood of the humans that she kills and like very ruthless at first. So I think that a lot of the witches kind of came out this way. And that's why they were like banished or forced to stay in the middle and they like couldn't move around like the normal Illyrians and the normal whatever. And I said that maybe they were also as well as being bloodthirsty, maybe they were also like very rageful that the males were lording over them because Prithian's a patriarchy. And so they were like, you're banished to stay in the middle. Like, that's where the witches are going to be because they're going to make all hell break loose if they keep like hunting everybody, you know? And I said, maybe even like the ones that were more Illyrian and normal, maybe they were also still treated like you're a corrupted witch, like how Devlon treated Nesta, right? Like, don't let her among the other females and children, and don't let her touch the weapons and all this kind
Which
of
we
stuff.
know, but we know about the don't let her touch the weapons thing. And
Yeah.
remember when we were talking about how it was considered a sexist comment, but really it wasn't?
So I said that the rest were also treated like monsters, even if they weren't, and they leaned more toward their Illyrian side. And I said that one of those bloodlines had to have been Rhys's mother's line.
Yeah.
Because of like, and we know that there are like different sectors of witches, obviously, in Tog and in Crescent City, because even Hypaxia, being a witch in general is kind of like, oh, like they're a witch, like, we don't want to deal with them, right? But then you have even the witches in Crescent City treating Hypaxia terribly because she's also a necromancer. So there's necromancy witches that are treated even worse than regular witches. And
Oh, really?
I think Hypaxia was attacked by, she was the queen of the Valbaran witches, and then she was attacked by her mother's second after her mother died in Crescent City 3 because, if you remember, because they didn't want a necromancer in charge, and she was like such a stain on the bloodline and all this stuff, and so they threatened to kill her, and they attacked her, and they took her crown, and all that stuff happened in CC3, and she was kind of kicked out of the coven. They were trying to kill her, basically, because she was a necromancer. So I think that's why nobody knew that Rhys's mother was a witch. But we know that Rhys's mother was a witch. We know that she was a necromancy witch just because of her fucking ring. I will say it 1,000,001 times. The motherfucking 6-pointed star in her ring.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the witches were known to be ruthless anyway. So I feel like her being like, if your future wife wants to survive a marriage with you because you're part of me and you're part of your father's line, she's gonna get my fucking ring, bitch. Like, she's gonna survive the Weaver.
That's like such a toxic, like, I know. It's like
that's
such
like a witch thing to do.
Witch thing to do. Yep. Yeah.
That's 6-pointed star. So, so I said, as I was thinking it over, if his mother was, Illyrian and witch, right? And assuming that Maeve was a part of his father's line, this is why his beast form is a very noticeably potent Valg Asteri demon, because he has Valg from his father's line from Maeve and Valg from his mother's line from being a witch.
I love it.
But because he's also Illyrian High Fae Starborn, he has control over himself like a normal Fae. Most time. Except for when he gets very angry and his eyes turn into the black pits of the Valg.
Yeah.
Which we've seen so many times now.
I know.
His eyes were like black pits. His eyes were like black pits so many times. This is why. Because he has the Valg from both sides of his line.
I love it. I do love too, like, I'm starting to appreciate when she writes, like, he has stars in his eyes. I'm like,
the stars winked out, and like, because he's also Starborn.
He's Starborn.
Right?
He's really, I'm like, oh, he's super hot, but I can't like you, but I do like you.
He's all 5 things. That's why he's the most powerful card. I wrote the big, long explanation explaining it in detail. My theory, like explaining it all in detail, and I put it on a TikTok with the quotes.
The one about Rhys? The one with Rhys?
Yeah. With all of the quotes afterwards, like highlighted from my Kindle.
I love it. I'm gonna go on. I have to go on TikTok. I haven't been on TikTok in months. So
I did the whole long explanation, and you guys have heard most of it. But I want to read the quotes again. Here it is. All right. So yeah, I did the whole moonbeam thing and I compared them, and I said, so this is what I added. I said, I mentioned the slow degradation of Rhys's character back to under the mountain level. I don't know if it was him dying and having to pay a price, but I would be on board for that being, I would be on board for that because getting away with not dying twice with no repercussions is a little bit of annoying. I do find it odd that he never mentioned Aelin falling through the sky. So SGM actually, I went back and I looked, and SGM says in an interview that to the whole of the inner circle, Aelin was a red comet. And the red star falling, the red comet falling, like we got that from Moore when she said, oh, you know, the red star, like Rhys has been rattled for a couple days, right? But SJM confirmed that Rhys saw Aelin. He didn't see a red comet. He saw her falling.
yeah, he made up the red comet. He made that up.
No. The inner circle saw a red comet, but he saw Aelin.
Yeah.
But she was, So I said, I think Rhys's still hidden gifts scare him, and the world hopping thing hits too close to home. Him being discovered, because we've said the whole quote with Cassian and Feyre. And I said, I think he's a little more like Maeve than he likes to think. And I quoted the whole threads thing and the fate manipulation thing with Nessian, which I know you hate.
I do.
But I added that the whole thing about the necromancy ring and his mother being a witch. But then I was thinking, and remember when we were questioning, like, how did she just give it to the Weaver? How does she just walk in to the Weaver's cottage?
Yeah.
And then we were like, how did Rhys just walk in and make the Weaver a bargain for the war? So the Weaver knew his mother, and the Weaver knew Rhys because of his mother.
Yeah.
Right? It's weird. So I said maybe being able to give her the ring, it was like a death god slash witch of death being friends, which would kind of mirror Rhys and the Bone Carver, because the Bone Carver is like, oh, you're my favorite.
Yeah.
You're my favorite. Favorite witch?
Rhys?
So this is the thing, right? So I said, Feyre also notes how the ring glimmers like a starfall spirit. I've said that before. That I'm still convinced that his mother bound her soul to the ring with the whole, my mother said she'll always be with me if I have the ring, that thing. So I said, then of course, Hofast comes out, and we have the little language bean.
Yeah.
Which would technically require a witch to create. And Rhys comes back with it. And it's nothing we've ever seen before. And who would Rhys go to create something like that in a matter of seconds? He would have had to have made it. Rhys is also a fucking witch.
What? Where are you coming up with this?
Because Rhys,
I like it.
Rhys goes off page. He's like, I know what we need. He goes off page and he comes back minutes later with the bean, and he's explaining it. Like, he knows what it is. Like, he knows how it was made. And he's like, oh, you just swallow it and it'll allow you to do this, and it'll do this to your brain, and you can hear our language and we can hear yours, and we can communicate in the same way. So Rhys created the fucking silver bean. And I feel like it was weird because at the time, Azriel was just kind of like, looking between them all. It was very weird. It was very weird. You have to admit, it was weird.
The whole thing was weird, but to me, I was like, that's a Helion or Thesan invention, not a Rhys invention.
But he couldn't have gone to another court and come back that fast.
He totally could. He winnows.
Okay.
They're Tamlin and they all do that.
Yeah, but you have to have permission to enter someone's court. That's the point. So he'd have to ask for permission, meet with the guards, go in to meet with the High Lord. Like, no. It's
Okay, well,
multi-step process.
Maybe he had it in his study. You know what I mean? From working with Thesan and Helion before. Like,
But
I truly don't...
Helion's a spell cleaver, not a spell maker, and Thesan is just a healer.
But Helion had the orb for the music, didn't he? The orb that Cassian
Symphonia?
had? The Symphonia. Who was that?
Yeah,
That
Helion had it, but like there was nothing like in it or whatever. That's more like technology.
But that's what I'm saying is like the Symphonia to me reminds me of the bean. Like these are inventions of like a unique making. So I feel like Helion would be the one who would make that bean and he would give it out to all the courts. I don't know.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
It's daytime.
We never film during the day.
Daytime. Why am I awake? The sun. We were talking about the witches and Rhys and Nesta, and we left off with the magic bean, and I was saying how I'm convinced that Rhys made it because he's part witch from his mom.
Yeah, that's right. I like it. I like that theory. But I don't think he's a witch. I don't know why. I think if anyone's going to be but I do think his mom's a witch. So it's just, but I don't think he's a witch, you know? I don't know.
But like, I don't know. That whole conversation is weird. And I'm gonna say it. It says, Rhys ignored them and extended his other hand in which lay a small silver bean. Bryce examined the silver bean that lay smooth and gleaming in her hand. Amren said without looking at her, you swallow it and it will translate our mother tongue for you. Allow you to speak it too. Without looking at her. So, Amren, as we know, Amren knows about Rhys. Stuff that he doesn't even know about himself, I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he does, and he just hasn't, like, he doesn't want the reputation of Thea and Fionn.
I personally think he knows everything. Because she talks about, how many times has she said those eyes full of secrets? Like, that's how she describes Rhys. Those eyes full of secrets. She said it like 3 or 4 times now.
I don't think he knows about the portals, though. I really don't think he knows about the portals.
He totally knows about the portals. What do you think he's studying? What is that called? The orrery?
Well, he has the orrery, but that doesn't mean he knows about the thin places in Prythian.
He totally knows. You mean to tell me that Rhys, the most powerful High Lord in Prythian, doesn't know about the portals? He knows.
He's
just not going to tell everyone.
He couldn't tell that fucking Hybern was a hologram, yo. He couldn't tell that Tamlin was glamoring Feyre. He's very naive in certain aspects of his life.
In certain aspects, but I also think now that he's had this kid, he's like getting really crazy and psycho. So he's like trying to defend against everything, and like he's studying. We know he's looking. He has Meryl and Gwen,
but both in Akawar and in Hofas, there are multiple lines of, oh, this part must have been lost through the history because it was by word of mouth. And oh, this part must have been lost in history because it was only through like oral translation. And then we have like Azriel going, oh, that wasn't passed down because Rhys doesn't know this. Like, Azriel's the spy master. I think he would know what Rhys knows.
I don't think so. I think Rhys he's a secret keeper. He's the ultimate. He doesn't tell Azriel. He doesn't tell Cassian. Nobody else knows but Feyre. I'm telling you.
Cassian know that he can jump forward and back in time. How does he know that? How? And then you would have people with the argument going, okay, well, if Rhys knows about the thin places, then he painted the mural in Tamlin's gallery.
I don't think, and I don't know if we're placing too much credit on the mural in Tamlin's gallery. I don't think we are. I think it's Lauren. I don't think like Rhys wouldn't paint. Rhys doesn't paint. Like that argument's stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But see, here's the thing. Even though he has like the stars in his eyes and whatever, he doesn't have the starborn power. He doesn't have the starborn light. It only manifests in females.
True.
So it would have had to have been his sister. Now, we don't know how his relationship with his sister was. We know that he loved her, obviously, because, you know, they're siblings. But we don't really know anything about how they interacted, like anything about her childhood, because he was already an adult when she was born, kind of like Eris and Lucian.
Yeah.
Because she was born like a couple centuries after him or whatever. And we don't know how they interacted. We don't know what Rhys knows about her. We don't know if she kept her stuff a secret. Because their father was awful, kind of, too. So.
Yeah.
We don't know. I don't know. I feel like the sister was the one that was more into research and all this stuff, because Rhys was more of the Illyrian and the warrior, and he was always at the war camps. And I feel like he didn't know as much of the history as the sister would know, just because obviously the sister wouldn't be able to train and all of that stuff, right?
Yeah, she's got like extra time on her hands to go read.
Yeah. I don't know. So I feel like maybe she knew all of that, and I don't know, just the whole mural thing is like, maybe she never told anyone but Tamlin.
I don't think she did. I honestly think like Tamlin and her just kept these secrets.
Yeah.
Between
but that's
each
why
other.
I don't think that Rhys knows, because if it's starborn power, it's going to manifest in her, and it depends on what she told everybody that she has. Or if she had something like that and the history is lost, you're going to be like, okay, what the fuck kind of magic do I have? Like, you'd want to learn about yourself and your own magic, right? So that's when I think that she was probably going and exploring or whatever. And I think she actually saw the hologram. And I don't think she told anybody, because think of the consequences of, like, especially telling their father something like that, right?
Right.
When their father is not as bad as Tamlin's, not really as bad as Baron's, but still very opportunistic, very sexist, very, you know, kind of like that. So you kind of have to think of, like, what would the consequences of telling her father be? Would her father have wanted to be High King? Would he have caused wars to do that because he thought it was his birthright? Just like Amren is like, it's your birthright, Rhys. It's your birthright, Rhys. Why aren't you doing it? So I feel like maybe a big part of her motivation was like, okay, I know how my father is. I don't really want him to ever know about this, or me. I don't know. And then I feel like Tamlin was her confidant, because if they were in love, if they were having an affair, she would tell him and he would see her light anyway, right?
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like Hunt and Bryce when they're like, you know. So I feel like it was kind of like that. So I don't at all think that Rhys knows anything about the hologram.
Who's the one? It's like Nesta, Azriel, and Bryce, right? That say that the history has been forgotten.
Azriel says that the history was passed down orally, and, you know, it must be lost because Rhys doesn't have any idea about this. And he says that in Hofast. And then in Akawar, Rhys says about Fionn, he's talking about Fionn and like the Daglin and all of that. And he's like, this is really all we know because it was passed down orally, and not all of it was like saved. We only have like the oldest scrolls from, you know, scholars.
Yeah.
Some of the oldest scrolls. We don't have everything. So
again, I think it's really weird that she doesn't put Rhys in that scene of like learning about the hologram and Fionn and Thea. Like, it's just weird to me. You know, it's because it's about him.
Because I think it's going to be the big part of the Gwynriel Nesta book, because again, with the bonus chapter, we left off with him and Nesta fucking hating each other still.
Yeah.
So,
but how do you think that's going to play in?
So if Nesta is going to be the next queen / high lady of dusk, and Rhys thinks, or Amren's been telling him, it's your birthright, it's your birthright, it's your birthright, that's going to cause a lot of shit.
But would he
Even
care?
though Dusk technically always chooses females, he doesn't really know that, right? And so the Night Court was technically Moore's bloodline, and it just transferred to him. So I guess we know that he's like, I'll never be High Lord, I'll never be High Lord. But like, you have to kind of think like, what strings is Amren pulling here? Because I feel like Rhys leans on her a little too much, I think. Like, yeah, she's your second or whatever. But I feel like every time they're in a sticky situation, he's like, Amren will know. Amren can tell me what to do. Amren can guide us. And it's like,
yeah.
Do you want to trust her though?
Yeah. But you know what's so funny to me is, I don't know, I think maybe you and I have a different perception of Rhys, because to me, I think he's more cunning.
I definitely think he's cunning. I just don't think that he knows about all of this history. And Azriel says he doesn't know.
But do we know that Azriel's a reliable narrator? That's my thing. Do we know that? We don't know. I don't think I just don't think he's going to tell everybody, even Azriel and Cassian. I don't think he's going to tell them everything. I really don't. I think he has lots of secrets. I think he knows a lot more than we know he knows. And he's just going to act like he doesn't. He was not surprised by Greg.
Maybe I get not telling Cassian and Azriel because he's already kind of like, okay, well, you know, they already accepted me and all of this power or whatever. But like, he wouldn't tell his mate. He wouldn't tell Farah.
Farah knows. She's not saying anything. Why? She's not even
know shit. Farah does not know shit.
She knows. We haven't seen Farah now in 2 books. She's been kind of
on mommy duty. She is not involved in shit, and that's going to be the thing because he's going to be. No, he didn't tell her shit, and that's why people are going to be mad because they're going to be like, he's acting like Tamlin, and he's not letting her in on things, and it's all going to come out, and Nesta's going to have another little thing that is kind of like the pregnancy where she's like, guess what? Turns out Rhys already knew all the shit, didn't tell you fucking anything as his high lady.
Why would she do that all over again? If she seriously does that all over again, that's stupid. We've already been down that road. Why are we revisiting this?
Because Farah keeps fucking forgiving him instead of chewing him the fuck out.
Honestly,
and she's going to have to at some point, kind of like Cassian, decide, do I stick with whatever my mate says, even if I know it's wrong, or do I take my sister's side? Do I take my mate's side? To the detriment of my High Lord, my mate. Because if you go back to book 1, what does Tamlin say about his parents? I loved my mother, but she would not say a word against my father because they were mates. And it reminds me of Rhys and Farah.
What makes you think that that's kind of where it's going? Because I don't read that at all when I'm reading Hofast or Silver Flames or...
Because you don't think that if Dusk chooses Nesta as its queen and Rhys knows that Dusk was his original bloodline, there's not going to be issues there?
I don't think he cares because I think she brought up the Amren plotline of the High King and Silver Flames for a reason. Amren goes to Rhys. You should be High King. Rhys isn't interested in more power. He doesn't want it. He wants his Night Court. He wants his mate. He wants his family.
And Rhys is all even keeled too, except for when it comes to Nesta. If Nesta's gonna get it, he doesn't want her to be it, and he'll fight her for it.
See, I don't think he will. I think he'll be like, ta-ta, goodbye, get out. I think he's gonna be like, thank God.
If Nesta... So, God forbid, it's more than what we think. God forbid, Nesta's High Queen. You don't think he's going to try to fight that?
She will never be High Queen. Nesta will never be High Queen.
Why? Since book 1, Book 1, human Nesta. Why has she constantly been called a queen?
Who
Queen.
cares?
Queen of queens. Lanthus. With the harp. With the crown. With the mask. All the dread trove. The exact replica of the drawing on the cavern wall.
I'm telling you.
Thea as High Queen and all of the dread trove.
Nesta will be High Lady of the Dust Court. That's it. It ends there.
She will, but I'm saying she could still be tapped for High Queen, whether she accepts it or not. I feel like it would be like, Rhys, I don't want her to get it, or Nesta, I don't want him to get it, so I might as well. And then there's just going to be this whole thing where none of them actually want it. They just don't want each other to have it. I can totally see that happening. And the midst of this is fucking bullshit going down with Koshi. And so everyone's like, okay, well, if it's between Nesta and Rhys, we have to see how they handle this war and see who would be a better leader for us. And it's going to be fucking crazy because you're going to have the Valkyries and you're going to have Azrael and you're going to have Cassian and nobody knows whose side to take because they care about both of them. And I don't know if I can say everybody, but I wanted a fucking Rhys and Nesta battle from the moment he was terrified of her power. And that nightmare scene, I go, they better have a fucking fight scene or I'm going to die. I need a Rhys and Nesta fucking fight scene because I know it would be epic.
See, I'm on the opposite spectrum of you. I don't want a fight scene. I want peace. I want the storyline to progress without Rhys and Nesta fighting. Like, I'm over Rhys and Nesta fighting. I'm done. Honestly, like it's old. It's an old trope. It happened in Silver Flames. I'm sick and tired of it. You know, so I don't know why she did that again.
But like there's families that don't ever stop fighting
until
it's
one
not
of
just
them
like,
leaves.
oh, I'm sick of it. Let's just stop fighting now. Like, no, you always hate each other.
But so she has to resolve this fight. And I truly feel that she's going to resolve it by just having Nesta leave the Night Court and just go to the Dust Court. And
so
then she'll take the Valkyries with her. If
she leaves the Night Court, Cassian ain't going with her. So decide, ma'am. Do you want her with Cassian or do you want there to be a fight?
So I want to bring something up to you though. It's funny. Reading Hofast, okay? The entire point of Hofast, because you and I had like talks about like an evil Rhys like theme, right? Or storyline. It's not gonna happen. Like, very obviously it's not gonna happen. But what you're describing to me is like Rhys being a villain, and I don't think
that's not a villain. I'm just saying that they don't want each other to like, if he knew that it was going to be Nesta, he would definitely try to take the spot. It's not that he wants to be High King or he wants all the power. He just doesn't want Nesta to have it. Because then Nesta, as High Queen, would technically be above him. And he cannot fucking stand anybody telling him what to do. Anybody being above him. We see that with Hybern. We fucking see that with Tarquin in his own court. She's the High Lady of the Night Court. Okay, but you're in the fucking Summer Court, dude. Shut the fuck up.
I know, but I don't think that we are going to see anyone above Feyre and Rhysand. That is the entire point. Nobody comes above them. What don't you get?
The title of Queen is already above Feyzand.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
They are the top. Sarah has said it herself. Melanie.
No.
No one is above Feyzand.
Okay, you know what Sarah also said in her Today Show interview? She said that Nesta is herself and that Nesta's journey was her journey and that Nesta isn't fully healed yet and we haven't seen the last of Nesta. Her favorite fucking person after Silver Flames is fucking Nesta. And as we saw on TikTok, she put Cassian above Rhys now. So she's kind of done with Feyzand, I think. She likes them, but I have absolutely no qualms that if she wanted to put Nesta above them, she's going to put Nesta above them.
Wait, where did you see her put Cassian above Rhys?
She did. I showed you. She did a TikTok where.
Was it the bracket video?
Yeah, the bracket video. And it was like, oh, Cassian or Rhys, Cassian.
Well, I think the result was already there, right? It was like pick between Cassian and Rhys.
Yeah.
I honestly, so here's the thing. I think that Nesta is herself, but I don't think like Nesta can still have a healing journey. She can still be super powerful. She can still have a really cool story. I don't think she will ever be above Feyre and Rhysand. It's just,
But
it's not gonna happen.
if she has the starborn power, even as the High Lady, the starborn power is the most powerful power. We see that with Bryce. All of Midgard was like, starborn heir, starborn heir, starborn heir. The mother gave you the 8-pointed fucking star for a reason.
Well, but wait a second. Aelin and Bryce are probably pretty much on the same level. Yeah, Aelin commanded armies.
Yes,
She fought
yes.
wars.
And she was a queen. Bryce was a queen.
Right here, right now. I'm gonna tell you
Feyre
something.
is not a queen. She has never been likened to a queen. She has never been called a queen. It's Bryce, Aelin, and Nesta, not Bryce, Aelin, and Feyre. All of these videos, Bryce, Aelin, and Nesta, Bryce, Aelin, and Nesta, Bryce, Aelin, and Nesta, not Feyre.
The only reason that's happening is because the Feyre's popularity has significantly tanked since people are now starting to see how awful she was about what she did with the Spring Court. That is the only reason. I don't think
And how
that's
she
the
treated
fandom.
Lucian, and how she talks about her sisters and like all this other shit. And it's like,
but that's the fandom's opinion. That's not the author's opinion of the character. I truly think SJM is surprised by everyone's reaction to how negatively we feel about Feyre. I don't think she thought that was going to happen.
Always talks super highly about Nesta. She literally has not really talked about Feyre recently at all.
She hasn't. She hasn't.
So she's going to put Nesta above Feyre because she likes Nesta more now.
Well, it's because of how negatively people are taking the Feyre's character. That's the reason why.
I don't know. Because Rhys was awful in book 1 and she still made him endgame. So, like, I don't think she gives a shit what we think, honestly.
She totally gives a shit. She said in that press conference, remember on her release night, it's all for the fans. This is all for you. That Hopefast, that was kissing up to her fandom. That's what that was. She went.
Not because half the fandom is fucking pissed with Hopefast. They're like, where's all the connections, Sarah?
Yeah, it was.
So no, she did not do it for the fandom. She did it for herself.
I just don't understand. I honestly, this is why I'm like, I can't even tell where her head's at. I can't even tell where her mind's at because it would be so bizarre to put Nesta in that role. Because also Nesta's like one of the most hated characters.
Foreshadowed since fucking ACOTAR.
No, it hasn't.
Yes.
No, it hasn't.
Nesta
the
was
sisters
being called
were originally
a queen by her mother. She was being likened to a queen in the Mortal Lands.
We call everybody queen nowadays. Who cares? It's so special.
Never called a queen. Never. Her mother wanted her to be a queen. She wanted her to marry a prince.
Who cares? Every mother wants their daughter. The mom wanted.
I'm going to go through this whole fucking thing and pick out every single fucking time Nesta is called a queen and compare it to Feyre's because Feyre's is 0.
If Nesta doesn't become a queen, I'm coming after you. I'm coming after you like a rabid dog.
Queen
I hope
of
you know that.
queens. Regal like a queen. Danced like a queen. She was like a queen. Every fucking book. Every fucking book. You cannot tell me that's not foreshadowing.
I think the Archeron sisters are going to be the high ladies. That's it. I think that they're just going to rule 3 courts in Prithian.
I think that's how it's going to end. But I still think she's going to be tapped for High Queen.
I hope Sarah drops the High King, High Queen bullshit real quick because it's a horrible storyline. It's dumb. It's dumb. And you want to know what? If anything, history we should be afraid that history would repeat itself because anyone with too much
History
power
always repeats itself.
becomes too corrupt. No one wants Thea 2.0. No one wants Fiona 2.0. If she
That's
breaks
the
up
thing. Nesta isn't Thea. Nesta isn't Fiona.
But it's
I mean,
so then why did
so
she say my special
you're like, oh, he's so cunning, he's so cunning, he's so secretive, but then you're like, he doesn't want power.
he doesn't want
Dude,
power.
he is knowing you.
Right.
He's like, no, I have the quote right here, don't worry. No, I'll never
pull
be, I'll
that
never
shit
be,
up
I'll
right
never be,
now.
I'll never be. He's fucking trying to sound humble, and he's not. But anyways, to backtrack a little bit, because again, we always get off topic.
Okay.
I have the scene with Devlon and Nesta.
Okay. Let's read it.
First of all, I forgot about this, but it says, so they're at the Illyrian war camp or whatever, and it says there were only a few female fighters in the Legion. Now is not the time to test the tolerance of the Illyrians. Later, if we won this war, if we survived. Being so dramatic, Feyre.
No.
Ugh. It's true then, the wall came down. A temporary failure. No, you're always a failure, Rhys. Anyways. On and on they went until Devlon looked over Rhys's shoulder to where we stood. A scowl at Moore, a frown at me, wisely subdued. Then he noticed Nesta. What is that? Devlon asked. Nesta merely stared at him, one hand clamping the edges of her gray cloak together at her chest. One of the other camp lords made some sign against evil. That, Cassian said too quietly, is none of your concern. Is she a witch? I opened my mouth, but Nesta said flatly, yes. And I watched as 9 full-grown weathered Illyrian warlords flinched. She may act like one sometimes, Cassian clarified, but no, she is high fae. She is no more high fae than we are, Devlon countered. A pause that went on for too long. Even Rhys seemed at a loss for words. Devlon had complained when we'd first met that Amren and I were other, as if he possessed some sense for such things. Devlon muttered, keep her away from the females and children. I clutched Nesta's free hand in silent warning to remain quiet. Moore let out a snort that made the Illyrians stiffen. But she shifted, revealing Elaine behind her. Elaine was just blinking wide-eyed at the camp and the army. Devlon let out a grunt at the sight of her, but Elaine wrapped her own blue cloak around herself, averting her eyes from all those towering, muscled warriors, the army camp bustling toward the horizon. She was a rose bloom in a mud field filled with galloping horses. So you cannot tell me she's ending up with Azrael, just saying.
Well, but also can we talk about how Devlon approves of Elaine? Right there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
He had complained that Amren and Feyre were other.
Oh, I thought he said Feyre and Rhys were other, or Amren and Rhys were other.
No, Amren and Feyre.
And Feyre, they were made
each other, yeah, but different than the cauldron. As if he possessed such sense for such things.
And he knows that because he's a Asteri maid, so.
Don't be afraid of them, Nesta said beneath lowered brows. If Elaine was a blooming flower in this army camp, then Nesta was a freshly forged sword waiting to draw blood. That reminds me of Manon so much.
Does it?
Take them into our war tent, Rhys said silently to me through the bond. Devlon honestly might throw a hissy fit if he has to face Nesta for one more minute. I would pay good money to see that. So would I. And then they get to the tent, whatever. Moore flung herself onto the nearest chaise. Welcome to the Illyrian war camp, ladies. Try to keep your awe contained. Nesta drifted toward the desk, the maps atop it. What is the difference, she asked none of us in particular, between a fairy and a witch? Witches amass power beyond their natural reserve, Moore answered with a sudden seriousness. They use spells and archaic tools to harness more power to them than the cauldron allotted, and use it for whatever they desire, good or ill. Elaine silently surveyed the tent, head tipping back. Her mass of heavy brown gold hair shifted with the movement and the fey light dancing among the silken strands. She left it half up, the style arranged to hide her ears should the glamours fail at Grayson's estate, Tamlin's, Glamours hadn't worked on Nesta, so perhaps Grayson and his father would have a similar immunity to such things. Elaine at last slid into the chair near Moore's, her dawn pink dress, finer than the ones she usually wore, crinkling beneath her. Will many of these soldiers die? I cringed, but Nesta said yes. I could almost see the unspoken words Nesta reined in. But your mate might die sooner than them, though. Shut up. Shut up, Nesta.
Yeah, it's kind of...
Moore said, whenever you're ready, Elaine, I'll glamour you. Will it hurt? No, it might tingle. Blah, 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 blah. And then later on, they, or actually earlier, not later on, it was earlier, chapter 30. They're like, Nesta's like there and everyone's like weird around her. And it says, the two Illyrians paused their inspection of me long enough to note my sister is finishing up breakfast, Nesta in a pale gray gown that brought out the steel in her eyes, Elaine in dusty pink. She's always wearing pink. Both males went a bit still, but Azriel sketched a bow while Cassian stalked for the dining table, reached right over Nesta's shoulder, and grabbed a muffin from its basket. Morning, Nesta, he said around a mouthful of blueberry lemon. Elaine. Nesta's nostrils flared, but Elaine peered up at Cassian, blinking twice. He snapped your wings, broke your bones. I tried to shut out the sound of Cassian's scream, the memory of the spraying blood. Nesta stared at her plate. Elaine, at last, was out of her room, but it'll take more than that to kill me, Cassian said with a smirk that didn't meet his eyes. Elaine only turned to Cassian and said, no, it will not. Cassian's dark brows narrowed. I dragged a hand over my face before going to Elaine and touching her too bony shoulder. Can I set you up in the garden?
Get her out of here.
Elaine, stop freaking people out.
Yeah.
The herbs you planted are coming in nicely. I can help her, said Azriel. No shadows at his ears, no darkness wreathing his fingers as he extended a hand. Shadows go away. They don't want anything to do with Elaine.
Well, we don't know what that means. We don't quite know.
We do.
We don't.
And then they go to the wall, and Fair says, I know Cassian gets under your skin, but I'm curious too. How do you know what to look for in regard to the wall? Nesta ran a finger over the ancient wood desk. Because I just do. How? I don't know how. Amren told me to just see if the information clicks.
That was weird. I always thought that was really weird. How they just expected Nesta to know, unless it was just inherently from the call.
She knows all the time. And the fact that it's connected to Amren is weird too, because remember, Amren was pissed that she didn't want to train with her.
Yeah.
I feel like Amren's collecting them like her own little trove.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird because Nesta declined training with Amren, and what did Amren do? Got super pissed, then sided with the IC, then said she should just live in Hewn City, and like totally turned against her just because she said no to her.
Yeah.
Like, it's very suspicious. And then we have, obviously, as we've said, the scene when they go to Hewn City and Amren takes her to the treasure trove, and she's like, see how you can feel out these objects, and some of them are sentient, and so when I was rereading that part, it clicked in my head that Amren knew that Nesta was going to be the one to wield the Dread Trove again.
How? How do you feel that Amren knew that?
Because Amren's like, we need to take her to Hewn City. She needs to feel out these different sentient things and see if she can pick them out. Amren knew her power, recognized her power. Suspicious. Right? And that leads us into the Amren conversation. I did print out one sheet.
Yay! Okay, great.
So we've been going so back and forth of what Amren is for so long. Like, what is she? Is she Asteri? No, she can't be Asteri. Yeah, she can be Asteri. she's not serious, but if she's not serious, who is she? So we know because of Vesperus that there are other Asteri other than just the 7 ruling ones on Midgard. So there were some Asteri and Prithians still, like Hybern, Amarantha, Lanthus, Vesperus, I still think that Amren actually is one. And I think Amren made her body the way that Vesperus did. And I come with receipts. As I say. First of all, we have so in my highlights, when I read over the Lanthus scene, and it says, Lanthus burst out laughing, the sound like a crow's cawing, hideous compared to his beautiful form. And I was thinking of Akamath and like the crow on the cover or whatever, and how we were like, is it Rhys? Is it Moore? Is it whatever? But it might be Amren. And so I was reading that and I go, crow's cawing. And I was like, where have I heard that before? That's been written somewhere before. So I looked up the phrase, right? It is said 2 times in this entire series. The Lanthus line and Amren laughed the sound like a crow's caw. Amren and Lanthus.
It's funny though. I know I love that you found that. I love that you found those quotes. But what trips me up, you'll keep going. I want you to read the rest of it.
So then we have the quote from Akasif. So, what happened to the High King? Feyre asked. Rhys ran a hand over the page of the book. Fionn was betrayed by his queen, who had been leader of her own territory, and by his dearest friend, who was his general. They killed him, taking some of his bloodline's most powerful and precious weapons, and then out of the chaos that followed, the 7 High Lords rose, and the courts have been in place ever since. Feyre asked, does Amren remember this? Now, this is the part that especially tipped me off. Rhys shook his head. Only vaguely now. From what I've gleaned, she arrived during those years before Fionn and Gwydion rose, and went into the prison during the Age of Legends, the time when this land was full of heroic figures who were keen to hunt down the last members of their former master's race. They feared Amren, believing her to be one of their enemies, and threw her into the prison.
Yeah.
When she emerged again, she'd missed Fionn's fall and the loss of Gwydion, and found the High Lords ruling. So they saw Amren and was like, you're one of them. Go in the prison.
Yeah.
And we know that she lied about when she went in the prison.
Well, here's my thing that I don't quite understand. I've always thought Amren was an Asteri, but there are 2 things that confuse me. Why was she just in a regular cell and not in a tomb like Vesperus?
We don't know. We don't know that she was. She just said, the minute I changed my body to look like a fae, it opened and I could leave.
But Lanthus was in a regular cell too. So why was he not in tombs like Vesperus?
I'm assuming that it takes like a lot of magic or a lot of power to entomb somebody. And when Thea entombed Vesperus, she had all 3 parts of her starborn power, remember, before she gave it to her daughters. Selene only had a third. And Selene was the one that like hunted down the rest of them. But I don't think she had enough power to entomb all of them.
To entomb all of them.
Yeah.
So I agree. I've always thought Amren was an Asteri. I've always thought that. But then it was the SJM thing where she said she's like an Old Testament angel.
But I guess things so many times that she's retconned. So I don't put any stock in old interviews anymore.
Okay, maybe not, or maybe
she's also said, oh, I will never do a crossover. Oh, I will never reuse names. Oh, I will never do this. I'll never do that. And then like she does.
Okay, so maybe that was.
So I think when she was thinking of the crossover and then thinking of everything that was said in Akawar and Akasif, and when she was writing Hopefast, she was like, okay, maybe I could have, the IC think like maybe she's an Old Testament angel, maybe she's something other, because even if she was like, okay, I fucked up and I told them that she was this, then she could always go back and just be like, oh, well, I couldn't tell you what she really was, because it would have given everything away, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
So there's 2 more quotes. And this is when Nesta's fighting Lanthus. So it says, Ataraxia was embedded to the hilt in Lanthus's chest. Lanthus screamed, arching, and Nesta leaped. She sliced a 2-3 combination, slashing straight across, letting the power of her breath, her legs, and her core carry the blade through. Ataraxia sang the heart song of the wind as it whipped through the air. Lanthus's head and corpse fell in different directions, thumping upon the stones. Strange black blood spurted from his form. And then we have Vesperus's red mouth opened in joy and triumph. No sound came out, only black blood. Bryce blinked at the crunch, the wet spray, the glint of silver that appeared between Vesperus's shining breasts. The first light flowing up the Asteri's body shivered, then vanished. Nesta had plunged Ataraxia right through Vesperus's chest.
Interesting.
And then there is, which I don't think is actually on this page, and I'm going to have to pull it up again. Actually, I think I said it in the last episode where she says, "Oh yeah, I slew one of their contemporaries 7 months ago." And Bryce was like, "Well, do you think she was an Asteri or whatever?" Which, how would Nesta know? She's never actually met an Asteri. How would she know?
That
She was like,
that land was
yeah, so she was like, "I don't know. I guess he was like a creature unto himself," because she's never met an Asteri. Because even if Hybern was an Asteri, he was connected to the cauldron, so he was glamoring himself as whatever he wanted to appear as at the time until he was going to kill them, where he had the dark power. But again, just like with Amarantha, it does not say what color blood he had.
So my only thing, okay, so I'm thinking about this, right? I'm thinking about Lanthys and stuff, but we never see the Asteri turn into mist like Lanthys did.
Because
you know what I mean?
Because again, they were connected to stolen power. We never see their actual magic.
So what if like Lanthys though was like a child of like
The Asteri.
of the Asteri and like they bred with something else because it's I mean I don't know. He
Could
talks
also
about
be a
the
creation
wild
of the
hunt.
Asteri. Yeah, he could also be a creation of the Asteri, but then why? But then that doesn't make sense because he has the same blood as Vesperus, and Vesperus is like, "I am an Asteri." But she also says, "I am the evening star." So,
well, but if like Lanthys is like one of their kids, he could maybe
is
have that blood
Vesperus
too.
also one of their kids? Like, who knows?
I don't know. That's what I don't understand. But I mean, he knew about the wild hunt, which is like a big deal. You know what I mean? So.
Oh, and also, I just want to point out all of the places that are wreathed in mist have a thin place. So the Northern Rift was wreathed in mist. The prison was wreathed in mist. Avalon was wreathed in mist. Ramiel during the Blood Rite was wreathed in mist.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I almost forgot. And I really wanted to bring this up. The Valkyries. I want to bring them up real quick to connect them to this.
Okay.
Quickly.
Okay.
So it says, which I was talking to Miriam about, and she's like, "Well, this is just more proof that Cassian and Nesta are in game." So.
Oh, it's more proof? Oh, okay, explain that.
Okay, so it says, "Valkyries," Farah asked from across the dining table in the river house, 4 calf raised to her lips. "Truly, truly," Cassian said, sipping from his wine at dinner that evening. He'd come down to the manor to discuss what to do with the weapons that Nesta had made, to learn what Farah's vote would be. What the fuck, Cassian? She hadn't hesitated before saying that Nesta should be informed. At least she's sticking up for her there.
Yeah, Farah has stuck up with her sister three times now.
But when she'd volunteered to tell her Cassian had stepped in, he would tell her when the time was right. Fuck you, Cassian.
Well, I mean, he is her mate, so maybe he felt as her mate, he should be the one to tell her.
But he didn't for like weeks now, like days. I don't know. The only one who hadn't voted was Moore, who remained in Valahan to keep coaxing its rulers to sign the new treaty, her absence marked by a place of honor set for her at the table. There is no way that's all she's doing in Valahan. That's just saying that right now. It has to be something connected to the Koshi War, but we never heard of them in the human lands, Elaine said. She'd been as riveted as Feyre to hear Cassian tell of it, first of Nesta and the others' interest, and then the brief history of the female fighters. They must have been fearsome creatures. Some were as lovely as you, Elaine, Rhys said, from beside Feyre, from the outside, but once they set foot in the arena of battle, they became as bloodthirsty as Amren. Amren lifted her glass in salute. I liked those females, never let a male boss them around, though I could have done without their foolish king.
Huh.
He is as much to blame for their deaths as the Illyrians who walked away during that battle. Who the fuck is their king?
Who is the king?
I can't argue with that, Cassian said. It had taken him a long, long time to get over that battle. He'd never been back to that pass in the Gallian mountains, but rumor claimed this is the thing. Rumor claimed its rocks remained barren, as if the earth still mourned the females who'd given their lives with no hesitation, who had laughed at death and embraced life so fully. His first lover beyond the Night Court's borders had been from the Valkyries' ranks, a bold-hearted female named Tanwyn, with a smile like a storm. She'd ridden into the battle at the head of the Valkyries and had never come out of the pass. Cassian added after a moment, Nesta would have fit in well with them. I always thought she was born on the wrong side of the wall, Elaine admitted. She'd made ballrooms into battlefields and plotted like any general. Like you two, she said, nodding to Cassian and then to Azriel. So, are the Valkyries dead? Or did they go through a portal? They just never came out of the pass?
Oh, I think they're dead. They're dead. Totally dead.
Well, people think Lauren is dead, too.
But there's evidence that Lauren is not dead. There is no evidence to support that the Valkyries are not dead. Or are dead. There's no evidence to support that they could be alive.
If they went through a portal like Lauren, everyone could totally believe they're dead.
But they fought a battle. Like, they were fighting a battle. I think it's even
if we get Twilight of the Gods and we see fucking Tanwyn, I'm calling you.
Yeah, that's fun. You want to
You and Miriam both. They're like, now they're dead. Now they're dead.
Yeah.
Now they're dead. You fucking
totally,
everyone is dead with no proof.
They're totally dead. She thought you were convinced people are alive that are not alive. Cormac is dead. The Valkyries are dead.
Cormac is not dead, and I am not the only one who says that. So no.
You're just wrong. It's wrong. It's
wrong. Right. We are right. There are more and more people on my train.
It's because they're listening to you. They're drinking the Melody Kool-Aid. Okay, hold on.
Skipping to the Rhys declining being High King and Amren's super weirdness. I had to go back a little bit because this is a funny scene and I love it. If Amren was right, Cassian couldn't think of another place in the world that held 3 magic blades, let alone 1. He drummed his fingers on the desk, curiosity biting deep. Let's have a look. Amren said not to, Azriel warned. Amren's not here, Cassian said, smirking. They're like little kids.
I love them.
You don't need to touch them. He clapped Rhys on the shoulder. Just use that fancy magic to unsheath them. I feel like they had this exact same conversation as kids.
All the time.
Mom said not to, but Rhys doesn't have to touch them. He can just use his magic.
Yeah.
Rhys lifted his head. This is a bad idea. Cassian winked. That should be written on the Night Court crest. A few stars blinked into existence in Rhys's eyes. Azriel muttered a prayer. I love Az. Rhys took 2 steadying breaths and unspooled his power toward the massive sword, letting it lift the blade in star-flecked hands. He has phantom hands too?
He does have phantom hands.
What?
Rhys.
What?
Dorian. Well, that whole Dorian thing is still floating around.
And Tamlin and Dorian. What the fuck? I never caught that actually.
I didn't catch that either.
It's heavy, he observed, brows bunched in concentration. In a way it should not be, like it's fighting against my magic. He kept the sword floating above his desk, perpendicular to it, as if it were held in a stand. Cassian braced himself as Rhys angled his head, his magic probing the hilt then the scabbard. Rhys mused. The blacksmith never said anything about what had seemed cursed. and he must have touched it several times to feel the power and to bring it here at least. So it can't be a death sword to slay any careless hand. Asriel grunted, I would still be careful. With a wicked smile toward Asriel, Rhys used his power to draw away the black scabbard. It did not go easily, as if the sword did not wish to be revealed, or at least not by Rhysand.
Huh.
What? What does that mean?
It means nothing. It means just that.
Or at least not by Rhys.
It's not his sword. Of course it doesn't want to be revealed by him.
Well, because he's Starborn and the Asteri made the made weapons. So if Nesta made them like the Asteri made the Dread Trove, then it would be like, fuck y'all, whole bloodline.
Oh my gosh.
Inch by inch, the scabbard slid from the blade, and inch by inch, fresh steel glowed, truly glowed, like moonlight lay within the metal. Even Az didn't school his features into anything but gaping awe as it fell away at last. Cassian stumbled back, gawking. Iridescent sparks danced along the blade. Pure crackling magic. The light danced and spurted as if the invisible hammer still struck it. The hair on Cassian's body rose. Rhys inhaled, rallying his magic, then floated and unsheathed the other sword and the dagger. They did not spark with raw power, but Cassian could feel them. Now, this is the little thing that you're going to say I'm crazy for, but listen carefully, okay?
Okay.
Keep in mind that Nesta made these. And not purposely either. The dagger radiated with cold, its blade gleaming so bright it looked like an icicle in the sun. The second sword seemed hot, angry, and willful.
Okay.
Cold and hot. Hot flames and silver flames. Nesta and Eris or Nesta and Cormac.
Oh my god, you have lost it!
Wait, there's more! But the great sword between the two others, the sparks faded as if sucked into the blade itself. None of them dared touch it. Something deep and primal within Cassian warned him not to, that to be impaled or sliced by that blade would be no ordinary wound. A soft female laugh rippled from the door, and Cassian didn't need to turn around to know that Amren stood there. I knew you idiots wouldn't be able to resist. Rhys murmured, I've never seen anything like this. See, he has no fucking clue. His magic set the three blades to rotating, allowing them to observe every facet, as his face was still slack with awe. Amarantha destroyed one, Amren said. Cassian started. I never heard that. Amren amended. Rumor claims she dumped it into the sea. It would not come to her hand nor the hands of any of her commanders, and rather than let the king of Hybern attain it, she disposed of it. Asriel asked, which sword? Narbin, her red lips quirked downward. At least that's what rumor says. You were under the mountain then, Rhys. She would have kept it secret. I only heard from a fleeting water nymph that it had been done. Bitch! You lying!
Well, I'm curious how she knows a water nymph.
A fleeting water nymph. Yeah, Amren's going and taking a swim in the fucking Sidra.
Yeah.
Narbin was even older than Gwydion, Rhys said. Where the hell was it? I don't know, but she found it, and when it would not bend to her, she destroyed it, as she did all good things. It was as much as Amren would say about that terrible time. It was perhaps in our favor. Had the king of Hybern possessed it, I fear we would have lost the war. Narbin's powers had not been the holy savior light of Gwydion, but one's far darker. I can't believe that witch threw it into the sea, Cassian said. Again, it was a rumor heard from someone who heard it from someone. Who knows if she actually found it? Even if it would not obey her, she'd have been a fool to throw it away. So, how many times are you going to correct yourself, Amren? How many times? How many times? I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing. Really? Really? Amarantha could be short-sighted, Rhys said. Cassian hated the sound of her name on his tongue, but from the flare of rage on Asriel's face, so did the Shadow Singer. But you, Rhysand, are not. Amren nodded toward the still rotating weapons. With these three blades, you could make yourself High King. Fucking bitch. Fucking bitch. So, I said on my Instagram, I said, Thea is to Vesperus as Rhys is to Amren.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cassian blinked. Rhys said tightly, I don't wish to be High King. I only wish to be here with my mate and my people. Amren countered, all 7 courts united under one ruler would give us far better odds of survival in any upcoming conflict. No bickering and politicking required to dispatch our armies. Malcontents like Baron would have no ability to threaten our plans by allying with our enemies. We would have to fight an internal war first. I would be branded a traitor by my friends in other courts, and I'd be forced to make them kneel.
Like he hasn't already done that, yeah. Tamlin.
No shit!
AKA Tamlin.
Fucking bitch.
Yeah.
Asriel stepped forward, shadows trailing from his shoulders. Callias, Tarquin, and Helion might be willing to kneel. Thesan will if the others do. Cassian nodded. Rhys is High King. He could think of no other male he'd trust more. This is why I don't like Cassian. No other male who would be a fairer ruler than Rhys. Go fucking suck his dick, Cassian. With Feyre as High Queen, Prythian would be blessed to have such leaders. He's literally getting on my nerves.
Yeah.
Tamlin would probably fight and lose. Baron would be the only one standing in your way. Rhys's teeth flashed. Baron is already standing in my way and doing a damn good job of it. I have no interest in justifying his behavior. He gave Cassian a withering look. Don't we have to leave soon to winnow you and Nesta down to the Spring Court to meet with Eris? Don't change the subject. His power rumbled in the room. I do not want to be High King. There is no need to discuss it. Yours is a terrible and beautiful power, Rhysand, Amren said, sighing. You have 3 magic blades before you, each a kingmaker in its own right, and yet you would rather share that power and keep it to your borders. Why? Rhys demanded, why do you want me to be a conqueror?
There you go. He's even questioning
Amren
it.
shot back. Why do you shy away from the power that is your birthright? I did nothing to earn that power, Rhys said. I was born with it. It is a tool to defend my people, not to attack others. Where is this talk coming from? Asriel said quietly, we are weakened, all 7 courts, even more at odds with each other and with the rest of the world since the war. If Montesir and Valahan march on us, if Rask joins with them, we will not withstand it, not with Baron already turned against us and allied with Briolin, not if Tamlin cannot master his guilt and grief and become what he once was. It was Asriel that brought up Tamlin.
It was. Okay.
Cassian picked up the thread, tucking in his wings. But a land united under one king and queen, armed with such power and objects, our enemies would hesitate. Fuck off, Cassian. Fuck off, Cassian. Rhys snarled, if you think for one moment that Feyre would be remotely interested in being a high queen, you're delusional. Amren said, Feyre would see it as a necessary evil to protect your child from being born into war. She would do whatever is necessary. And I won't, Rhys demanded, standing. I will not be High King. I will not consider it, not today, not in a century. Amren looked to the sword, still slowly rotating above them, then explained to me why, after thousands of years, objects that once crowned and aided the old Fae have returned. The last time a High King ruled Prythian, it was with a magic sword in his hand. Look at that great sword before you, Rhysand, and tell me that it is not a sign from the cauldron itself. So, they only knew about Theon. But if they knew about Thea, it's because of Nesta, not because of Rhys. High fucking queen.
What? How do you figure that?
They only know about Theon.
But how do you figure that they know about Thea because of Nesta?
No, because Nesta is basically the next Thea. Not like an evil, but like she had the 8-pointed star and like she was tapped to be the Queen of Dusk. Like they're not thinking, oh, Nesta made these, so she must be the prophecy. They're thinking Nesta made these and we've only ever had a High King. There's never been any talk of a High Queen, so it must be Rhysand's prophecy.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Cassian's breath caught in his throat. It was a fluke, Amren. Nesta didn't make it on purpose. Amren shook her head, hair swaying. Nothing is a fluke. The cauldron's power flows through Nesta. And we could use her as a puppet without her knowledge.
That's so awful. That's so awful right there.
It wanted those.
So much.
It could use her as a puppet without her knowledge. It wanted those weapons made, and thus they were made. It wanted Rhysand to have them, and thus the blacksmith brought them to you. To you, Rhysand, not to Nesta. Because you didn't fucking tell her.
See,
yet.
it's yeah.
And do not forget that Nesta herself and Elaine, with whatever powers she has, is here. Feyre is here. All 3 sisters blessed by fate and gifted with powers to match your own. Match your own. Feyre alone doubles your strength. Nesta makes you unstoppable, especially if she were to march into battle wearing that mask. No enemy could stand against her. She would slay Baron's soldiers, then raise them from the dead and turn them on him. That is very Asteri-like talk.
It's very Asteri-like talk.
Cassian's blood chilled. Yes, Nesta would be unstoppable, but at what cost to her soul? Rhys leveled a cool stare at Amren. I will not entertain this ridiculous notion for another moment. Cassian knew that they'd been dismissed, nodded to Az, who followed him toward the doors. They paused, however, right before the threshold, looked back at their brother, their High Lord, now seated alone at the desk, the weight of so many choices pressing heavy on his broad shoulders, drooping his wings. Very well then, Rhys and Amren also turned from the desk and the blades, Rhys's magic now sheathed and set upon the surface. But know that the cauldron's benevolence will be extended to you only for so long before it is offered to another.
Yeah. Yeah. Mic drop.
My girl.
That's so funny. Well, we'll see. I'm not entirely
Totally
convinced.
sounded like an Asteri there.
She does sound like an Asteri. Absolutely. She totally, just knowing what the cauldron is doing, knowing what the cauldron does, like picking and the new weapons. I would not be surprised.
What she did to Feyre during the war.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Very
she can read
Asteri,
the
very
different-
kind of cold. Yeah.
She is
Absolutely.
playing a long game.
I would love to read that storyline.
much.
I would absolutely love that.